For my 40th birthday, my family kept telling me, just wait, something big is coming.
My husband smiled every time I asked. Be patient, he said.
I wanted to believe him, but with each passing moment, the anticipation only grew stronger. It was a special milestone, and I couldn't help but wonder, was I about to be surprised with something amazing? On the day of, I arrived home from work, expecting to see decorations, maybe a cake waiting on the counter, or even just a few thoughtful gifts. But when I stepped inside, the house was eerily quiet.
No streamers.
No balloons.
Nothing.
I called out, "Hello?
Is anyone here?"
But the only sound that greeted me was the hum of the refrigerator. Confused, I looked around, checking the kitchen, the living room, even the bedrooms, but there was no sign of anyone.
No note. No card. No phone call.
I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, wondering why they were so quiet. A strange feeling washed over me, something between disappointment and anxiety.
Maybe they were planning something big. Maybe it was a surprise after all. But hours passed, and still, no word.
I went through my social media feed, trying to distract myself.
That's when I saw it. A photo posted by my husband.
There he was, smiling, his arm around our 2 kids. And behind them, the ocean, waves crashing against the shore, the bright sun setting in the distance.
My heart sank. They were all at a beach resort.
The caption beneath the photo was even worse. She won't even notice we're gone, LOL. My mind raced. Was this some kind of joke?
How could they leave me out like this? How could they do this on my birthday? The sadness quickly morphed into anger.
Why hadn't anyone told me?
Why wasn't I invited? I didn't know what to do. I didn't call them. I didn't comment on the post.
I just sat there, staring at the screen, numb. I let the silence fill the space around me. As the hours turned into the next day, I told myself I wouldn't let this ruin my birthday. But deep down, a feeling of betrayal lingered.
How could my family have done this to me?
3 days later, my WhatsApp started buzzing like crazy. At first, I ignored it. But after a few more notifications, I glanced down at my phone. There were 30 messages waiting for me. All from my husband, my kids, and even my in-laws. The first one was from my husband.
Hey, where are you? Are you okay? Please talk to us.
The next few were from my son, each more desperate than the last. Mom, please don't be mad.
We didn't mean to hurt you.
We just wanted to surprise you, but now we see how it went wrong. Please forgive us. And then came the worst message of all, from my daughter.
We thought you'd be happy. Why won't you answer?
We're sorry, Mom.
We love you.
Tears welled up in my eyes. I hadn't replied to any of them. I just watched the messages pile up, each one heavier than the last. I hadn't realized how much their absence had hurt me. It wasn't just the lack of a surprise. It was the thought that I wasn't even worthy of being included. My heart ached with the realization that they thought I wouldn't care, that they thought I wouldn't notice their absence.
What was I supposed to do now?
Could I forgive them for this? Could I even face them after they left me out in such a way? The unanswered messages continued to flood in, but still, I couldn't bring myself to reply.
The pain of feeling forgotten was too much.
But just as I was about to turn off my phone and retreat into silence, one last message came through.
It was from my son.
Please, Mom, we're sorry. Please come.
We need to talk.
The urgency in his message sent a shiver down my spine.
What were they hiding? What did they want to talk about?
I didn't know what to think anymore. What was going on? What had they done that they needed to apologize for so desperately? And why did it feel like I was only getting started with this storm? The next morning, I woke up to the sounds of my phone buzzing again. I had barely slept, tossing and turning with the weight of everything that had happened the day before. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in on me with every passing moment. I glanced at the phone, the screen lighting up with more messages, more from my family, more from my kids, more from my husband. I didn't want to face them. I didn't want to hear their apologies or their excuses. It felt like I was drowning in their guilt, their regret, but I knew I couldn't just ignore it. Not forever. I finally picked up the phone, scrolling through the messages one by one. Each one felt heavier than the last. I had no idea what they had been thinking, what had led them to leave me behind like that. Had I really been that invisible to them? The first few messages were from my husband, all of them begging me to call him, to talk to him. But the one that made my stomach drop was the last one. Please, can you just come? We need to explain, And we can't do it over text. We're at the beach, but it's not what you think. Please, I love you. We need to fix this. Something about that message shook me. Why was he being so cryptic? What wasn't he telling me? It was as if he was trying to cover something up, but what could it be? I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The fresh air helped to calm my nerves, but the questions kept swirling in my head. I couldn't stop thinking about how my family had acted. They knew how much this birthday meant to me, and yet, they didn't care enough to include me. Was I being too sensitive? Maybe they didn't think it was a big deal. But it was to me. It was a big deal. I walked for hours, lost in my thoughts, unsure of what to do next. But by the time I returned home, the feeling of betrayal still hung in the air. I could barely bring myself to look at my phone. Then, as I entered the house, I saw something strange. There, on the kitchen counter, was a small, unmarked envelope. My heart skipped a beat as I picked it up, not sure what to expect. Inside was a letter. It was from my husband, and it was written in his unmistakable handwriting. I unfolded the paper, my fingers trembling. The letter was short, but every word stung. I know I've messed up. I thought I could make it up to you by giving you space. I thought if we gave you some time, you'd see it was all part of a plan, part of a bigger surprise. I didn't expect you to feel this hurt. I never wanted to hurt you, but now I realize I've done just that. I don't know how to fix this, but I need you to know that I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I read the words over and over. I wanted to be angry, but instead, I just felt empty. Was this his idea of an apology? Was he asking me to forgive him just like that, with nothing but empty words? I didn't know what to think, and I didn't know what to feel. It was like all the pieces of the puzzle were in front of me, but I couldn't quite put them together. What had gone wrong? How could things go so wrong so quickly? I needed answers, and I needed them now. I went back to my phone, hesitating before hitting the reply button. It felt like there was a wall between us, an unspoken tension that I couldn't break through. But then, something shifted. I realized I wasn't going to get the truth from a text or a letter. I needed to see him, to hear his voice. I needed him to explain everything to me in person. I texted back, my fingers moving faster than my brain could process. I'll come. But I need to know everything. Don't leave anything out. The response came almost immediately, thank you. I'll be waiting. I promise, we'll fix this. I just need you to trust me. Trust. That word haunted me. How could I trust him after everything? How could I trust that they wouldn't just hurt me again? But as I prepared to leave, I realized something. I wasn't going there for him. I was going for me. I needed closure. I needed to understand what had happened, to know if there was any chance of fixing what had been broken. And so, I packed a bag, told myself I was going to face whatever was waiting for me at that beach resort, and I left the house without looking back. The drive felt long, though it was only a couple of hours away. I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. Every time I thought I had my emotions figured out, they seemed to twist in a new direction. By the time I arrived, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm orange glow across the water. The place was beautiful, but it only made me feel more alone. I spotted my husband standing near the edge of the resort, looking out at the ocean. He was alone. His face was tense, his eyes scanning the horizon like he was waiting for something, or someone. I approached slowly, each step bringing a fresh wave of doubt. Was I ready to hear the truth? Was I ready to face whatever he was about to say? But as I took the final step toward him, a new wave of panic hit me. He wasn't alone. Standing beside him was someone I didn't expect to see. A woman. A stranger. And she was smiling at me. The woman turned to face me, and I froze. She was holding my husband's hand. I stood there, frozen in place, staring at my husband and the woman beside him. The world around me seemed to stop, the warm glow of the sunset fading into the background as everything sharpened into a blur. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, but the words stuck in my throat. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my chest, and the ground beneath me felt unstable, like it was shifting with every beat. The woman smiled at me, but it was a smile I didn't recognize. It wasn't the kind of smile you give someone who is hurting, it was almost too bright, too perfect. Her eyes met mine with a look I couldn't quite read, but it wasn't comforting. It felt like a mask, something designed to hide the truth. My husband turned slowly, his face softening when he saw me. Hey, he said, his voice uncertain, like he didn't know how to begin. I'm glad you came. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, still in shock, my heart pounding so loudly that I couldn't hear anything else. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just turn around and walk away. The woman, sensing the tension in the air, stepped forward. I'm sorry, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. I know this must be confusing, but please, let's talk. We need to explain. I turned to my husband, searching his face for any sign that this was some kind of mistake, some misunderstanding. But there was nothing there. His eyes didn't hold guilt or shame. He looked resigned. Like he knew something I didn't, something that I wasn't ready to hear. Who is she? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why is she with you? His eyes flickered, and for a moment, he looked like he was struggling to find the right words. Then, he took a deep breath and spoke, his voice steady but filled with regret. Her name is Clare, he said. And she's the reason I've been distant lately. I didn't want you to find out this way. I never wanted to hurt you. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Clare? The name sounded so foreign, so wrong, coming from his lips. What do you mean, distant? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What does she have to do with this? I've been seeing her, he admitted, his voice quiet but clear. For the past few months. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I staggered backward, unable to fully comprehend what I was hearing. Seeing him standing there, looking at me with those eyes, it felt like the world was unraveling around me. Is this why you left me on my birthday? I asked, barely able to get the words out. You were with her the whole time? He nodded, guilt etched into every line of his face. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I gave you space, you'd understand. I was wrong. I should have told you sooner. I turned to Claire, who was still standing there, watching me. Her expression was neutral, but I could see the faintest hint of anxiety in her eyes. She was clearly uncomfortable, but not apologetic. Not like I had hoped she would be. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. How could you do this to me? I asked, my voice trembling. How could you both do this? I never meant to hurt you, my husband said softly, stepping closer. I never wanted to betray you. I know I've made mistakes, but please, can we talk about this? Please don't walk away from me. His words felt like a slap in the face. How could he say that? How could he think that this was something we could just talk through? He had already made his choice. He had already left me in the dust, with no explanation, no warning. I looked at Claire again, her eyes meeting mine. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but then stopped herself. She looked at my husband, then back at me. I didn't know it was like this, she said, her voice hesitant. I didn't know you'd find out like this. Of course I'd find out. I shouted, the anger bubbling up inside me. You didn't think I'd notice? You didn't think I'd see the signs? My husband took a step back, as if he hadn't expected me to react this way. Please, calm down, he said, his voice soothing. We're not here to fight. We just want to explain. I shook my head, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Explain? I repeated, incredulous. What's there to explain? You were seeing someone else behind my back. You abandoned me on my birthday. There's nothing left to explain. Claire took a step forward, her expression softening. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice quiet but sincere. I never wanted to hurt you either. I never meant for things to happen like this. I looked at her, finally seeing her clearly for the first time. She was beautiful, no denying that. She had that kind of smile that made everything seem perfect, like she had everything under control. But in that moment, I wasn't angry at her, I was angry at him. She wasn't the one who had made vows to me. She wasn't the one who had promised to love me forever. I turned back to my husband, my voice low and steady. I want you to leave. Both of you. His face fell, but he didn't argue. He knew it was over. He knew he couldn't fix what he had broken. I'm sorry, he repeated, his voice cracking. I know I've ruined everything. But please, don't do this. But I was already walking away. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to be around him or her. I didn't want their apologies, their excuses. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. I didn't turn back as I walked away, but I could feel their eyes on me. I could feel the weight of the decision, the finality of it all. But deep down, I knew this was the only way to move forward. I had to let them go. I had to find my own way out of this mess. I don't know how long I walked, but by the time I found myself at the edge of the resort, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind only the dark silhouette of the ocean. The gentle hum of the waves was the only sound that filled the empty space between my thoughts. I felt hollow. The weight of what had happened was still heavy on me, but it was accompanied by a strange sense of numbness, as though I was still in shock, unable to fully process everything that had just been revealed. I didn't want to be at the resort anymore. I didn't want to be anywhere near my husband or Claire. The thought of facing them again made me feel sick. But at the same time, I didn't know where else to go. I didn't want to go back home, not yet. There were too many memories there, too many moments that now felt like they belonged to someone else. Everything had been tainted. I found a small cafe on the edge of the resort, barely lit by the soft glow of a few hanging lamps. It looked almost deserted, but I didn't mind. I sat at a table by the window, my hands shaking as I picked up the menu. I wasn't hungry, but I needed something to do, something to distract myself from the chaos in my mind. The waiter approached me, a young man who seemed to be about my age. His smile was kind, though it felt almost out of place in my current state. "Can I get you anything?" he asked. I looked at him, then back at the menu. "A coffee, please. Black." He nodded and walked away, but I didn't even register his movements. My mind was still reeling from the events that had just unfolded. How had it come to this? How had I missed all the signs? How had I allowed myself to believe in the illusion of a perfect life? My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was another message from my husband. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the notification. The temptation to open it was almost too strong, but I knew I couldn't handle any more words from him right now. I couldn't take the apologies, the guilt, the excuses. I just couldn't. I turned the phone face down on the table, pushing it away as if I could physically block out the hurt that was coming from all sides. The waiter returned with my coffee, placing the cup in front of me with a soft smile. "Anything else I can get you?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, thank you." He nodded and walked away again, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The steam rising from the coffee was comforting, but it didn't do anything to settle the storm inside me. I brought the cup to my lips, but the taste felt bitter, just like everything else in my life right now. I didn't know how long I sat there, sipping the coffee and staring out the window at the ocean. It was so beautiful, so calm, yet I couldn't escape the turmoil inside me. The world outside seemed so unaffected by my pain, and that made everything worse. How could everything still be the same when my entire world had just shattered? As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, I began to feel a strange sensation. It wasn't the anger that had consumed me earlier, nor was it the sadness that had threatened to take over. It was something different. It was a flicker of clarity. Maybe it wasn't about what had happened. Maybe it was about what I was going to do next. I had always prided myself on being strong, on being the one who could hold everything together. But now, it felt like I had lost myself in the process. I had to find her again. I had to find the woman who wasn't defined by the betrayal, by the hurt, by the shame of being left behind. I finished my coffee and stood up, feeling the weight in my chest ease just a little. It wasn't gone. It was still there, lurking beneath the surface, ready to drag me down again. But for now, I was standing taller. For now, I was breathing deeper. As I walked back toward the resort, I could feel the tension in my shoulders begin to loosen. I wasn't ready to face my husband yet. I didn't know if I ever would be. But I wasn't going to run away either. I couldn't let this destroy me. Not like this. The path leading back to the resort was empty, but the sky above was dotted with stars, a reminder that no matter how dark it felt in this moment, the world still moved on. I had to do the same. When I reached the lobby, I paused for a moment, taking in the view of the quiet space. The people there seemed oblivious to the storm inside me. I was just another woman, another face in the crowd. But right then, I didn't care. I didn't need their sympathy or their attention. I needed to be alone, to sort through the pieces of my life, to figure out what came next. I found a quiet corner in the lobby and pulled out my phone, knowing that I needed to make some decisions. But before I could type anything, I saw a message from my daughter pop up on the screen. It was simple. "Mom, please come home. We're all sorry. We love you." My heart ached at the words, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't ready to come home. Not until I understood what had happened. And why. I sat there for a long time, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. The quiet of the lobby, the soft hum of conversation in the background, it all felt distant, as if I were living in someone else's world. But somewhere deep down, I knew I had the strength to rebuild mine. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But it was mine to rebuild. I sent one last message to my husband. I need time. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need time. And for the first time in days, I felt a small glimmer of hope. I wasn't ready for forgiveness. Not yet. But I was ready for the next step. The next day, I woke up with a sense of dread gnawing at my stomach. The previous day had felt like a blur, and now, as the morning light filtered through the blinds, I could feel the weight of everything slowly sinking back in. The emptiness of the room echoed in my mind. My husband's words, Claire's smile, the hurt in my children's messages, they were all circling in my head, too loud to ignore, too painful to embrace. I got out of bed slowly, taking in the silence. The world outside seemed calm, untouched by the chaos inside me. The waves had kept crashing along the shore all night, their rhythm steady and unbroken, just like the life I had always known. But now, everything felt different. Everything felt broken. I hadn't heard from my husband since the night before. I hadn't responded to his messages, and I didn't intend to. I needed space. I needed time to think. The truth, his betrayal, had left me shattered, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront him. Not yet. Not until I had answers. I walked to the window and stared out at the ocean, letting the cool breeze wash over me. The endless horizon seemed so peaceful, but inside, I was anything but calm. My emotions were tangled: anger, hurt, confusion, betrayal. But there was one thing I couldn't shake, the feeling that something wasn't right. That this whole situation, my husband's affair, the secrecy, it wasn't just about a broken marriage. There was something more. It was in the way my husband had acted, the way he had apologized, as if he expected me to forgive him just like that. It was in Claire's presence, too. She didn't look like a woman who was sorry for what had happened. No, she looked like someone who was just trying to make herself feel better. And that bothered me more than I cared to admit. I couldn't just move forward without understanding what had really happened. I couldn't forgive until I knew the whole story. I decided to take action. I needed to talk to Claire. I needed to hear it from her. Maybe, just maybe, she could give me the answers I was looking for. My mind raced with possibilities, questions I didn't even know how to ask, but I couldn't sit around and wait any longer. I had to face this head on. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. It rang for what felt like forever before she picked up. Hello? Her voice was soft, tentative. Claire, I said, my voice steady despite the nervous tension running through me. It's me. I want to talk. There was a long pause on the other end, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she spoke, her tone hesitant. I don't know what to say. I didn't want it to be like this. You didn't want it to be like this? I repeated, my frustration bubbling to the surface. You knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you? You knew what you were taking from me. There was silence on the other end again, and I could hear her breathing, soft and shaky. Finally, she spoke again. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to come between you and your family. Then why did you? I demanded, unable to stop the anger in my voice. Why did you get involved with my husband? You knew he was married, you knew about me, and you still chose to go behind my back. I didn't plan it, she said, her voice quivering. It just happened. And once it started, I didn't know how to stop. I never meant for things to get this far. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. So you just let it go on? You just kept going, knowing what you were doing to me? I didn't know how to fix it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to undo what had already happened. I was wrong. I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't make it any easier to accept. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay, I said. You can't just erase the pain you've caused. I know, she replied quietly. And I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. But I don't know how to make it right. I don't know what to do. I let out a frustrated sigh, my grip tightening on my phone. You don't get to fix this. This is between me and my husband. But you can stay out of it. You can walk away. There was another pause, and I could almost hear her thinking, weighing the decision. Finally, she spoke, her voice resigned. I understand. I'll leave. I'll stay away. I'll give you space. Good, I said, feeling a strange sense of relief. That's all I need from you. The line went silent for a moment, then I heard her voice again. I hope you find peace. I really do. I didn't respond. I just hung up. As I stared at the screen, I realized something. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I wasn't even angry at my husband. Not right at this moment. I was angry at myself. I had let this happen. I had ignored the signs, allowed myself to stay in a relationship that had been broken long before I even realized it. I had trusted blindly, and it had cost me. But it was time to stop blaming myself. I had to stop seeing myself as the victim in this story. This wasn't just about what had happened to me, it was about what I was going to do next. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let my pain be the thing that controlled me. I took a deep breath and stood up, walking out of the cafe. The air outside was crisp, the sun peeking out from behind the clouds, giving the world a soft, golden glow. It wasn't a perfect day, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a chance to start over. I didn't know what was going to happen when I went back home. I didn't know if I could ever truly forgive my husband. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to wait around for things to fix themselves. I was going to be the one to take control. As I walked back to my hotel room, my phone buzzed again. I didn't even need to look at it to know who it was. Another message from my husband. Please, I need to talk. Please come home. We can fix this. I stared at the message for a long time, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. The pain was still there, but so was the resolve. I wasn't going to let him make me feel small again. I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't done fighting. I didn't respond to my husband's message right away. In fact, I didn't respond for the entire day. Each time I looked at my phone, the weight of the words "we can fix this" seemed to press harder, suffocating me. I knew what he wanted, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure what I wanted. The pain had settled into a dull ache in my chest, but it wasn't the hurt that kept me from replying, it was the fear of what might come next. The next day, I woke up to the sound of the ocean once more, its waves crashing steadily against the shore outside my hotel window. The sun was just beginning to rise, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to push me forward. I took a long walk along the beach, my feet sinking into the cool sand as the morning breeze tugged at my hair. The world around me was so peaceful, so calm, but it felt like the calm before a storm. My emotions were still a tangled mess, but I knew I couldn't keep running from them. I had to face this head-on. As I walked, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I picked it up, and my heart sank as I read the message. I know I've hurt you. I know I've broken your trust. But I swear, I'll do anything to make it right. Please come home. Let's fix this. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. Every part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him how much he had hurt me, how much he had destroyed everything we had built together. But another part of me, the part that still loved him despite everything, wanted to believe him. The problem was, I couldn't. I couldn't believe his words anymore. I couldn't just forgive him for what he had done, no matter how badly he wanted me to. This wasn't about forgiveness, it was about me finding my strength, about me finding my own way out of this mess. I turned off my phone and kept walking, focusing on each step as the sand shifted beneath my feet. I wasn't running away. I was just taking a moment to breathe, to think. It wasn't until later that day, as I sat in a quiet cafe, staring out at the water, that I finally made up my mind. I wasn't going back. I couldn't go back to the life I had once known. It was too broken, too fractured. The man I had loved, my husband, wasn't the person I thought he was. And the woman he had been with? She wasn't the person I wanted to face anymore, either. I thought of my children, of my son's desperate messages begging me to come home. My heart ached at the thought of them, but I knew I had to do this for myself. I had to set an example for them, to show them that it was okay to walk away from what wasn't right, to teach them that self-respect was more important than holding on to something that was already gone. I needed to find my own path, to rediscover who I was beyond being a wife and a mother. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But it was the only way forward. That evening, I called my husband. When he answered, I could hear the desperation in his voice. Please, he said. Please come home. We can fix this together. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before I spoke. No, Mark, I said, my voice firm but calm. I'm not coming home. I can't. I'm not the person I was before. I can't be that person again. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then I heard him choke out a single word. Why? Because I deserve more than this, I said, feeling the strength rising in my chest. Because I deserve to be loved for who I am, not for who I was. I've been lost in this marriage for too long. I can't keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not. I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. I never wanted any of this. I know, I replied. But it happened. And I can't fix it. I can't fix us. There was another long silence before he spoke again, his voice breaking. So this is it? You're just going to walk away? Yes, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm walking away. For me. I hung up the phone, not looking back. I had made my decision. It was over. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I packed up my things and returned home, not to the life I had once known, but to a new chapter, one that was entirely mine. The healing was slow, and the pain still lingered, but with every day, I felt stronger. I went to therapy, I spent time with my friends, and I focused on myself. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but I knew I was on the right path. I took my kids on small trips, showing them that life could be beautiful, even in the midst of heartbreak. And slowly, with each passing day, I learned to forgive myself. I had been through so much, but I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I found a new sense of independence. I started a business I had always dreamed of, something I could call my own. My life was mine to rebuild, piece by piece, and this time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to fix it. And as for my husband, he tried reaching out, called, texted, even sent letters. But I didn't respond. I had given him everything I had to give, and now it was time for me to give something to myself. In the end, I learned that letting go wasn't about forgetting, it was about creating space for something better. Something real. Something true. And while the past would always be a part of me, it didn't have to define me. I was no longer just a wife, a mother, or someone else's story. I was my own story now. And it was just beginning.